Here they'll come.
And I'm just going to bring, for now, I'm going to bring Catherine in.
Okay. So,
Okay.
quorum being present, this meeting is recorded by video and audio in accordance with the open meeting law pursuant to section 20 of chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. Additionally, all votes taken by the planning board during this meeting and future remote meetings will be by roll call vote. Nobody's calling in. Meeting's been called to order. Introduction of planning board members and staff. You know, Sean Henry, Hank Vaccaro, Dave Rosen, Jane Ramson, Greg Catamatori, planning director, our scribe, Catherine McNiff. Thank you for the minutes. They're lovely. Although I felt like I was going down memory lane going back to December of last year. But thank you for that. So first on the consent agenda is an approval not required plan submitted by Seaside Legal Solutions PC for Rebuild Gloucester LLC to divide one lot into 5 at 8 Orchard Street, Gloucester, Mass. Map 83, lot 16. I don't see any Joel Favaza.
Let me, I will put up the plan.
Okay.
Too many windows open. It's still no Joel?
No.
Okay.
I don't see, well, Peter's here, the applicant, if you wanted to invite him, Peter Alf.
Okay, I allowed him to speak.
So Peter, we do have, I don't know if you can see the screen. We have a, you're rendering, when's it dated? I can't scroll down. But anyways, just state your name and record for, name and address for the record, and just briefly describe the A&R application, absent your attorney.
My name is Peter Alfay. I live at 1 Nichols Lane Extension in Linfield, Mass. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
So if you want to just walk us through the A&R that you've proposed.
Okay, so on Orchard Road, we have 2 additional lots. We have the frontage. The other 2 lots we want to enter from Grapevine.
Okay. And frontage is 80 feet, yeah. So 99, and so that's 88 for lot 4. Yeah. Okay. And so 3 lots frontaged on Orchard, and then just 2 on Grapevine.
Yes.
Greg, any color from your perspective?
No, they all, although, you know, one lot is kind of oddly configured, but again, I think the building footprint would be obviously out by Grapevine Road. They all have the required frontage and area for the R20 district, which is 80 and 20,000 square feet. And it looks like they also have established setback compliance for the existing structure and garage on lot 1.
Yeah, terrific. Questions from members? Go ahead, David.
How many, I know we're just looking at this as an A&R plan, but I'm curious how many units are being proposed?
You know, we haven't finished designing it yet. We kind of want the area to look good. That's why we try to keep the as much of the original landscaped around the old house intact. I kind of want to put a nice cedar fence around it. So we haven't decided yet because we want to make sure that it looks nice with the atmosphere there, with the road, with the trees and stuff. So that hasn't been totally completed yet.
Okay,
You? Anything from you, Jane? No?
No, believe it or not.
Those are your words, not mine. So hearing no further questions from board members. That's interesting. That is a revised agenda. If you want to just put that other agenda up for me, Greg.
I've got the language. I move that we approve the approval not required plan for 8 Orchard Street, Assessors Map 83, Lot 16.
We have a
I'll
motion.
second her.
Thank you, Hank. Roll call vote, please.
Member Noonan,
Yes.
member McCarl,
Yes,
member Henry,
Yes.
and member Remsen,
Yes.
and member Rosen.
yes.
All right. Thanks, Peter. Good luck.
Thank you, everyone.
And just want to recognize Gemma Wilkins, our senior planner.
I'm just going to promote the representative for the next 2 applications.
Sorry.
Do you want to move to public hearings?
Sure. So next on the agenda, public hearings pursuant to section 20 of chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law 48, section 9, and the Gloucester zoning ordinances, section 1.8.3 and 5.13, Gloucester Planning Board to consider an application submitted by Celco Partnership DBA Verizon Wireless for a wireless communications facility special permit to install a small cellular installations on National Grid utility poles approximate to 300 Concord Street, Assessors Map 241, lot 249, lot 28. So I'll open the public hearing. And I think you said we have there she is. Can Ms. Foley just name and address for the record and who you represent?
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Paula Foley. I am a network real estate consultant with Verizon Wireless. Would you like my business address?
Just, yeah, that would be fine, just for the record.
Sure.
Know where to
It's
find you.
15 Chestnut Street, Worcester, Massachusetts, 01609.
Right.
There actually are a couple of other representatives from Verizon on the Zoom who are also available to answer any questions regarding our proposals. Can I just introduce them at this time? Would that be appropriate?
Yeah.
Okay, first we have Stan Yusevich with Verizon Government Affairs. And we also have Sean Conway, who is Verizon's principal network engineer for small cells in New England. And we also have Syed Ali, who is a radio frequency engineer with Verizon. And also Mike Elsier from Aerosmith, who is a site acquisition specialist for these 2 projects.
Well, you brought everybody.
Well, it's actually my first time before the planning board here, so I just wanted to make sure we had enough folks on hand to answer any questions that might come up.
Well, I appreciate your thoroughness. We've seen a couple of these before, but let's get into it.
That's correct. What we're proposing to you this afternoon are virtually identical to the projects that were approved by the Gloucester Planning Board a couple of years ago in 2020. So we have submitted 2 petitions for permission to install small cell wireless communications equipment on 2 utility poles in the public rights of way, as you noted, near 300 Concord Street and 79 Summer Street. These two utility poles are jointly owned by Verizon and National Grid. The purpose of the wireless installations will be to improve wireless service and provide additional capacity and coverage in those areas where our Verizon engineers have identified as areas that need improvement in coverage. The equipment will consist of one small canister antenna mounted at the top of the utility pole. The antenna will be 35 inches in height and 14 inches in diameter. Lower down on the side of the utility pole will be a remote radio unit, and below that, an electric meter. There will be no ground-mounted equipment, and there will be no ground disturbance with either of these proposals. So we have provided in our application package an affidavit from our RF engineer regarding the need for these small cells. And we have also submitted an emissions compliance letter demonstrating that both locations will be in compliance with FCC emissions requirements. So we believe that these locations comply with all the federal requirements as well as the requirements set out in the Gloucester zoning ordinance. So we respectfully ask that you approve our requests, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Laura. Paula? Any questions from board members? Well, we can, I guess, go ahead, Hank.
Yes, is this what we call a G5 installation?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that term.
What is the new speed on
No,
5G.
no, it's not.
5G? Okay,
yeah,
5G.
No, it's not 5G. These are both 4G
4G.
installations. Yeah.
The reason I ask this question is there's currently a piece of legislation under study in the Massachusetts legislature to challenge 5G, or I guess that's what it's called, 5G installations within 1,500 feet of residential units. It's something that they almost got slipped in up in New Hampshire, but they did push it into a study committee. There are people claiming health impacts from the 5G stuff. I think it's very similar to the problems that we seem to see that people got so concerned about radiation from cell phones in their ears a while back. But nonetheless, this is a national movement against 5G. But if this is only 4G, I'm assuming that that's not included here, although the way that that legislation was put forward in New Hampshire would have banned what you're trying to do, as well as all radio amateur operations virtually in the entire United States, and certainly in the state of New Hampshire, as well as any other radiation transmissions from any other source. It's the most absurd thing I've seen, pardon the expression, but nonetheless, it's something that looks like it's happening across the country. And I don't know how it might impact on your operations. I personally have no problem. Of course, I will be first to admit I'm a radio amateur, but nonetheless, the fact is that it is a very, very dangerous piece of legislation that's being pushed by people that are claiming health impact from the radiation.
Well, I agree with you. It is it sounds absolutely absurd, and it has no basis in fact or science. So I'm very sorry to hear that.
That's not what they're claiming. They have somehow found people to get up and to testify otherwise. And it's happening in all the states. It isn't just here.
Well, again, these are not 5G installations.
Right.
They are just 4G.
I don't think that doesn't seem to be how they're writing that legislation. It's any radio transmissions within 1,500 feet. It's a very poorly done piece without any consideration for the necessary technology to move into the 21st century. But nonetheless, it's something that they almost slipped it in up in New Hampshire. It became very, very close. They got it in before people found out about it, and they finally got it put aside. I think it's been pushed aside into a study committee here, but it's going to be very, very important for people to be aware that this kind of thing is not just happening here, it's happening in every state in the United States.
Mm.
And I'm very aware of this because I happen to be a representative for the American Radio Relay League for East
Oh,
Massachusetts.
uh-huh,
Thank you for that.
yes.
David?
I'm curious how these, when these are being located, what's the criteria for locating them in a particular, on a particular site? And if we could go back to that photograph, that aerial photograph for a second. Is that Marshall's farm stand on the upper side of where it says Concord Street?
Yeah.
Just trying to get located here.
I can show a different map that'll give you a little bit better context.
And I guess the second part of my question is the intent of doing these smaller kind of facilities to improve areas where
Yes,
cell coverage is poor?
that's generally it.
Yes, yes, just in a layman's terms, and then I will hand it over to our engineers to provide some additional information. These small cells are just designed to be used in very discrete areas for a very specific purpose. These particular areas have been determined by our engineers as having poor service, meaning calls could drop, or they could be too many simultaneous users in order to provide a good signal. You probably notice if you go in these areas, you don't have as many bars on your phone as you otherwise would. And small cells are just designed to address a very small area which cannot be adequately served by another type of antenna, such as a cell tower. But I'd like to give our engineers an opportunity to address this better than I could. So I could, if I could I ask either Sean or Syed if he is joined to address that question?
Yeah. There.
Well, yeah, Syed is here. There he is. Okay.
Oh, excellent.
Hi, so this is Syed. I'm the RF engineer for Verizon. I'm working here for like 3 years. So the only reason we put a small cell, if we don't get a coverage from the other cell site, because the terrain is so up and down. So even if you put a cell site around, it won't give a coverage to that. So that's the reason we want to put a small cell over there. We did a prediction. We have a software which we runs to see where the coverage, and we see the customer complaint. So this area, we have a very bad coverage and we're dropping a lot of calls. And I see there's a farm, there's a lot of people goes by there. So that's why we want to put a small cell over there.
Syed. Stan, did you have your hand raised?
I did earlier, only to reiterate, that we're following and monitoring that study that was referenced earlier. And of course, we also monitor them throughout the country in terms of, what's taking place with RF and the threat to the system, if you will. And just by means of full disclosure, I didn't grow up. Gemma Wilkins grew up across the street at her grandfather's house, so I do know her. And also I spent time as a lifeguard at Good Harbor, listening to through the miracle of Marconi, Simon Geller's work.
Flushing the toilet.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Hey,
Don't put that in the minutes.
thanks,
Does
Cal.
that go on the notes?
Yeah, of course.
No. It's just an observation. If he talked about Simon Geller, he was infamous for that.
So
other-
David, just to answer your question, that's Cedar Rock Gardens. That's to the north.
That's
of the
Cedar
site.
Rock.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Any
Thanks.
questions for board members on the first of our two communication facility inputs? Jane?
Yep, and basically this applies to both sites. First of all, do I understand you're replacing the utility pole and adding a new utility pole? Or are you just adding a new utility pole? In other words, are we
Putting one on an existing.
No.
Are we getting one new utility pole, or are you replacing an old one and putting on a new one?
Both of these existing utility poles are going to be replaced.
Okay, Thank you.
So, and National Grid is actually doing the replacement. No, Verizon is not doing the replacing.
Of course, yes,
Yeah.
thank you. And then is the utility pole any higher than the existing utility pole, the new utility pole?
Yes, the new utility pole will be about 5 feet higher than the existing.
Okay, thank you. And my last question is really more of a comment. With these applications, I thought included normally was a radio frequency map showing, you know, where the radio frequency isn't so good. And not that I don't believe your radio frequency engineers, but is that not typical?
We provide what is required in the application. And
Okay.
I didn't see a requirement to provide, and I think what you're referring to is a coverage map rather than an RF map.
Yes, sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah,
yeah,
coverage map.
Yeah, no problem. And I didn't see a requirement in there to provide one, and I don't believe we provided any when we were here a couple of years ago.
Okay.
However, if you are making that a requirement, we can certainly do that.
No, but maybe we should go back and look at our ordinance and maybe require it in the future, but thank you. I think I've seen it not with Verizon, but other carriers. Then I think they just include it as a matter of course.
I can make a comment on the height limitations because it is part of the state regulations that that antennas of this nature on any structure are not to be more than 10 feet above the surrounding canopy. This should be pretty obvious that that's not a problem with these installations, but that's in the state ordinance on zoning, and we have to comply with that. And I'm telling you, I was very much involved when we reviewed that for the city of Gloucester as well, in terms of height limitations. Thank you.
And I also think that it's the convention when National Grid replaces 35-foot poles, they're replaced with 40-foot poles.
Yeah, that would be normal.
That's correct.
Despite what the zoning ordinances have to say about the height of structures.
Don't talk about height, Hank. We're not going down that hole tonight. Thank you.
Yes,
We are in a public hearing setting. So if anybody in the attendees list would like to make a comment for the application for this communication device, please raise your hand. You'll be recognized. And we will just ask that you state your name and address for the record, and you'll have your 3 minutes of fame. So we do have one attendee with a hand raised, right?
Oop.
And where'd she go?
I'm not sure where she went.
Okay. We do have a phone listener. And again, if you're on your phone, I think it's a *9 to raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment for or against the application.
There we go. Hello, can everyone hear me?
Got you now.
What's that?
I say we can hear you and see you.
Oh, great. So I'm Cody Smith. I live over at Cedar Rock Gardens,
Okay.
and we are building a house directly across from, you can see it in one of those pictures, directly across from that pole. So we're probably only about 100 to 150 feet away from the pole. And I'm just wondering, I did a little bit of research and none of it really concluded, but you know, that there was any bad setbacks, but I have 2 small children. Should I be concerned with a pole that close to my house with my small children? I guess that's a question for Verizon, maybe.
Sounds like an engineering question, but go ahead.
Sure, I'll just start and say no, you have no reason to be concerned. The pole is certainly a significant distance away from that house. The equipment on the pole is governed by emission standards that the Federal Communication Commission establishes, and the proposals are well within those limits. And the FCC sets the limits by coordinating with agencies such as the FDA and OSHA and the EPA and the World Health Organization, and sets these standards and requires us to comply, and we do.
Gotcha. And so being within 150 feet, because I know there's like some standards where some of the Verizon workers are only allowed to work on these, work on the poles for like, say, an hour at a time because they have to, only have such and such an exposure limit. And if you look at the original, plot line, my new house doesn't even show up on there. So we're a lot closer than maybe you guys realize that there is a house, or maybe you didn't realize there was a house that close to that pole. And is there a way possibly, I guess the second question would be maybe to just take that radio tower and slide it a couple poles the other direction just to give a little bit more of a safety comfort zone?
Well, first of all, let me just say, you don't need to worry about a safety comfort zone. I don't even think that's an issue. The FCC has determined that the emissions requirements ensure safety. So that's not going to be a problem. But I would ask our site acquisition specialist, maybe Mike Elsier, if you could just talk about other locations that you evaluated before this particular one was selected.
Yes, thanks. My name is Mike Elsier, and I'm the site acquisition specialist. One of our largest constraint for selection of poles in Gloucester is that Gloucester distributes at 30 kV, and National Grid doesn't allow us to actually install any radio equipment on any pole that's 30 kV or more. And so what we're left with secondary poles, and we're left with stub poles. So there's not that many poles that are actually available on, whether it's on Concord Street or the other at the other location for us to actually co-locate on. So that's the rationale for actually selecting that particular pole.
So Michael, the 30 kV refers to 30,000 volts that are on the primaries. Is that correct?
That's the primary line. Yes, that's correct.
So I don't know if that answers your questions. And we've done a few of these in the past, and the work always seems to be extremely thorough. But I know with
Cool.
2 young kids, it can be a concern, Mr. Smith, and I don't know what other assurances that Verizon.
No, I mean, all the research I did said that it was, or just reading, I guess, on like the American Cancer website and stuff like that, said that it was fine. So I guess I just wanted to maybe hear it from them a little bit. And then I guess the only other thing is, National Grid may be putting transformers on that pole. And then they're also going to be running a primary line at some point to the new house this fall. And I didn't know if that was I don't know how soon the radio tower is going in, or the cell phone tower is going in, but I guess interruptions and things like that with that pole getting replaced. What type of timeline for like power getting shut off to my house per se? Is that a pretty quick thing that happens when they do the pole transfer out?
Yes, the pole is scheduled to be replaced in the very near future. So once the new pole goes in and everything is transferred from the old pole to the new pole, that's when we will go in and attach the small wireless equipment. Gotcha. But we expect that to happen within this calendar year.
Right. So, and I guess so will there be an interruption in power to my house during that time? Because my drop line comes off of that pole is all.
Yeah.
No, I don't anticipate any interruption in electrical service.
That's a
Gotcha.
National Grid issue. It's not Verizon.
Okay.
And having been through a pole replacement at my new house, there was no power interruption, and they were done in about an hour.
They can do it pretty well.
Yeah.
Without changing it. In fact, they don't want to change the transmission lines if they can possibly help it.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
attach it to the new pole.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for your time and your concern. Thank you. Any other folks in the audience like to contribute to the discussion for or against?
Not seeing any other raised hands.
Not I. Okay. So I'd like to close this part of the meeting. And any final discussion among board members on the Concord Street application?
I think it looks very straightforward. I'm ready to vote.
Okay, so we can take a crack at a motion.
Okay, I move that we approve the application submitted by Cellco Partners, DBA Verizon Wireless, for a new wireless communications facility special permit to install a small cellular installation on a National Grid utility pole proximate to 300 Concord Street.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Member Noonan,
Yes.
member McCarl,
yes.
member Henry,
Yes.
member Remsen,
Yes.
and member Rosen.
Yes.
Thank you. Everybody stays put. We'll get through this next public meeting and see if anybody wants to talk about Summer Street from Nurse Street. Just pop up the agenda for me, Greg.
Yep.
So our second new public hearing this evening pursuant to section 20 of chapter 20 Acts of 2021 in accordance with provisions of Mass General Law 48, section 9, the Gloucester zoning ordinance sections 1.8.3 and 5.13. Gloucester Planning Board to consider an application submitted by Cellco Partnership DBA Verizon Wireless for a wireless communications facility special permit to install a small cellular installation on National Grid utility pole approximate to 79 Sumner Street, Assessors Map 240, Lot 31. So I'll open the public hearing. I don't know that if you want to read something into the record, Paula, or obviously very similar application, different location.
Yes, well, perhaps I could just say that what our second proposal is extremely similar to the first. It is a small wireless antenna located on the top of the utility pole with the radio unit and the electric meter lower down on the side of the pole. This is located in the public right-of-way in an area of the city where our engineers have identified service needs improvement. And again, there will be no ground-mounted equipment or any ground disturbance in this particular one. And we're happy to take any questions you may have regarding this location.
Okay. Let me scroll back to the aerial.
Is it Summer or Sumner Street?
It says Summer Street there and Sumner on the application.
Yeah, I believe it's Sumner.
It's Sumner.
So that's
yes.
right by the little bridge over the creek there. Okay.
I apologize for that typo.
Name
It
that.
says Sumner on the header of the page, but it's Summer on the slide.
Yes,
Sorry, we're picky like that.
understood.
I didn't say anything, Jane, about you.
I was going to, but then I decided to let it go because I had 3 other questions. It seemed
Okay,
more
well, let them
important.
fly.
No, I
So
mean,
is-
I already asked my 3 questions. I didn't want to
Okay,
get picky about the typo.
okay.
And Paula, just for clarification, in this case, there is not the replacement of the pole?
Yes, there is also a replacement of this pole.
Oh, okay, there is. Okay.
Let's have to do it.
National Grid again is replacing the pole prior to the installation.
So any further discussion about more board members? Don't think so. So we are in a public hearing, a second new public hearing If anybody in the attendees list would like to ask questions or speak to this application for this new communications device, they hit *9 on your phone to raise your hand electronically, or on the bottom of your screen, there should be a raised hand. You will be recognized. Just ask that you state your name and address for the record. Okay, seeing none. Close the public comment period. Any other further discussion? Seeing none. Jane, it's all up to you.
I move that we approve the application submitted by Cellco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless for a wireless communication facility special permit to install a small cellular installation on a national grid utility pole proximate to 79 Sumner Street.
Second,
Thank you, Hank. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Member Noonan,
Yes.
member McCarl,
yes,
member Henry,
Yes.
member Remsen,
Oops, yes.
and member Rosen.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you very much, all that
Yeah.
attended.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We definitely appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Saeed. So, saw Joel pop up for a second, but I guess he took off. Just an agenda, please.
Yep.
So next on the agenda is a continued public hearing pursuant to section 20 of chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021 in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law 40A and section 5 in the Gloucester zoning ordinance section 1.11. The Gloucester Planning Board will hold a remote public hearing to consider the following proposed zoning amendment. Amend the Gloucester zoning ordinance section 5.11.31 inclusionary housing requirements, applicably by removing the words "the creation of" and 5.11.32 by removing "a net increase of," and section 5.11.41 basic requirements by removing "the creation of," and in 5.11.42 removing "the creation of." Whew. So a lot of words and numbers. I will open the public hearing, reopen the public hearing. I know there's some passionate discussion to get over a couple of words, but let's get into it.
So since the last meeting, again, I think the intent and purpose, not only of Councilor Grove's proposed amendment, but also in the discussion with the board at the last meeting, the intention was to clarify that the threshold for the applicability of the inclusionary housing requirements is at a 6-unit project, regardless of how it arrives at a 6-unit project. The current language was interpreted to only require a unit or an in lieu payment if a 6-unit project was 6 new units. So if there were a conversion of a structure, either a single, a 2, a 3, a 4 into a 6-unit by the addition of units, it would only be a project that had a net increase of 6 units. The discussion at least 2 weeks ago, or actually, sorry, we had a little hiatus back in the end of June, was to clarify the board's legislative intent was to capture all projects that arrive at 6 units or greater. The language that Councilor Grow proposed was a little bit, again, something that I think would be open to maybe further interpretation, not crystal clear in terms of when it actually applies. And I think Member Remsen suggested that I also review it with the city solicitor. So we've arrived at language that I think covers the bases, again, to just clarify the threshold and also dealing with the different ways in which a project might arrive at that 6-unit threshold. So this red line version that's been provided, it's rather wordy, but I think it does make it very clear. So the proposed amendments would include language when it talks about the threshold using the phrase, any application for residential development, mixed use development, or use variance for the addition of 1 or more residential units that results in a development with 6 or more dwelling units. That is the trigger. That would be the threshold that would cover potential conversions. And then similar language kind of carries through the ordinance. I think I covered all the sections, although I'm seeing that Councilor Groves, I think, had 3 locations, and I feel like I only have, I'm sorry, 4 locations, and I think I only have 3. So I'll have to double check. But that again, rather wordy, but tries to make it clear that conversions are something that also would be triggered by or trigger this ordinance.
Terrific.
I love it. And there are 4 places that count, that there's 3 places, I'm sorry, that say the creation of, and 1 place which says a net increase of, which is in 5.11.32. So you can see it there.
Ah, there it is. Okay, so I have to make the adjustment there as well.
Right. So what would it say? Exactly. That result.
I think we'd probably use the similar language. Development applications for the addition of 1 or more residential units that results in 6 or more lots or dwelling units above. Yeah, I think again, I think that's dealing with the issue of potential segmentation. So I think we would mirror that language. It's basically taking that same development application for the addition of 1 or more residential units that results in a development with 6 or more dwelling units.
So I have a question about this, and I'll use the example of the Orchard Road A&R plan that we just approved earlier in this meeting. You've got 5 A&R lots there that could be approved. You've got 1 house on it already. Potentially, you could have 10 units on that property. How is that? But if those lots are not all sold at one time or all developed at one time, how would this ordinance apply to that situation?
You know, and I suppose that's an area for either looking at what we call a residential development application, a subdivision, a special permit, a cluster development, a multifamily development. There's a decision associated with it. I think A&R is one where it's a little bit more challenging to do that because of exactly what you're saying in terms of it's not clear and there isn't a decision mechanism to be able to identify how you would do that. So the way that it could potentially happen on a but kind of a division like that is really with this second provision, if it's special permitted applications or subdivision applications that can kind of look that far into the future. It's very difficult with an A&R application.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, Greg, it means that it at the end of the day, it wouldn't really apply unless they were going to come in and do a development all at once of the property.
I think it would require a special permit. So there have been some instances where there might be, a 3-unit project and then a 4-unit project on an adjacent property that was in common ownership. And given that time frame of 36 months, that would be the capture and trigger of that second application. But I think it's not really something that we can do down to that level of an A&R application because we don't have anything to tie it to in terms of a decision.
So it's a loophole, right?
But it's
Blame the state.
Well, it's a common ownership issue, I think, right? I mean, the lots are sold to individuals and they put up a duplex and there's, 10 dwelling units on 5 lots owned separately, then it's not a common ownership issue.
No, I think what David is saying is you can put in a road and create 22 individual single-family lots. And would that be captured under this ordinance in the same way as if you don't put in a road and you just create however many lots you can create by the A&R process?
Correct. I mean, on Deacon Lane, we had inclusionary housing, right?
Yep.
Because they required a road, but because it's an A&R plan. So my question really is there, it seems that there's a real advantage to developers here to get around an inclusionary housing.
Yeah, don't say it out loud.
Well, I mean, I think there's only so much we can do. I mean, we also have to look at the State Enabling Act, and it's really development and special permit that you can apply these inclusionary ordinances to.
Right.
So
So
I think
David,
there's-
the state sets the A&R stuff.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm well aware of that, but it's
But-
it is the loophole against what we're trying to achieve here.
Back to this ordinance, I want to make sure we get the language correct for the net increase paragraph.
Yeah, let me pull, I'm gonna open a Word version of this. Oh, look,
guess, yeah.
I just happen to have it right there.
Can you make it bigger for us?
Yeah, let me just do some typing and then I'll bring it back up.
So I think it should say applications that, no, it should say applications for the addition of one or more residential units that result in a net increase. So I think you still need to keep the net increase in there.
One or more
Residential units.
It's not the net increase you're worried about, it's the total number. If you say net increase, then you go back to the problem of if I start with one house and just add 5, I haven't done a net increase of 6 to trigger it. So if you
Oh,
just-
okay, you're right. That result in 6 or more.
yeah.
But then
Should be-
how is it different than the paragraph above?
Because
I don't
this
know.
is dealing with segmentation.
Okay, yeah. I know, it's just that there ought to be different language because one meant creation and one meant addition of additional units. But I guess if you're adding additional units to a base of 0, then you're ending up in the same place.
Yeah, so I think the language would be for the addition of one or more residential units that results in more than 6 or more
Yeah,
lots.
see,
with
that's
dwelling
what I'm-
units.
That results in a development with 6 or more dwelling units.
Yeah, I think we could probably drop lots. And just keep it to dwelling units,
Units, yeah.
Mhm.
6 or more dwelling units.
Well, did we mean lots when we said lots? We meant lots. Right?
6
What
or
if a
more
lot,
lots.
what if
or
a
dwelling
lot
units.
is not developed?
I think that would address some of David's point. If somebody comes in and has an existing lot that's divisible into 6 units through an A&R, that would, including lots, would address David's concern about capturing the A&Rs also.
Mhm.
If we can do that without contravening the state rule on A&R, I think it should be lots or units.
Can you make your thing bigger so I can read it, Greg?
Yeah.
I guess, David, my comment is that if you have frontage and setbacks for a buildable lot, you have a buildable lot, right? And that's not in common ownership.
Yeah, no, I understand that, Rick.
Yeah.
It just seems to me that there's an oddity there in being able to say, fine, I'm going to create 6 lots or 5 lots, whatever it's going to be, and I'm going to be exempted from a inclusionary housing.
Well, the exemption is predicated on frontage, right? In Deacon Farms Lane, there is no frontage for the 10 lots, right?
Right. So Greg, I think you need to take out more, the first more. It's either more than 6 or 6 or more.
That results in, could take out that phrase. More
Well,
than,
just only one more. We just only need one word that says more.
and
Okay,
6
that
or more lots
results
or dwelling
in
units.
6 or more dwelling lots. Yeah, right?
Okay.
For the addition, let me just think this through. Segmentation.
6 or more lots or dwelling units, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I still don't think it says anything different than the previous paragraph. Because
Well,
the previous,
except the, yeah, so.
because we
the
just
previ-
changed the previous paragraph to say really basically a net increase. And if you're starting with 0, then it's 6.
Except that the first provision says any application.
Yeah.
So it's talking about one application. This is talking about if there were multiple applications
Oh, I see.
over that period that result in. So
Okay,
a 3 and a 3 would trigger.
got it. Got it. Okay. Yep, I think we did it right.
Fantastic. So we are in a public hearing setting. If there's anybody in the attendees group that would like to speak for or against this highly studied zoning amendment, please raise your hand. Be recognized to speak, just name and address. We can get into it again. Seeing none, close the public hearing comment period. Further discussion amongst members? Seeing none. Jane, the floor is yours.
Yep, my off mute, yep. I propose that we approve the amendment of the Gloucester zoning ordinance section 5.11.3 with the changes that we just discussed and reviewed.
Fantastic.
So I'm going to make a little tweak there and say, recommend to the city council the adoption of.
Oh, no, let's just do it.
Just propose it, Jane. Just propose it.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Henry. Roll call vote, please.
Member Noonan,
Yes.
member McCarl,
Yes,
member Henry,
Yes.
member Remsen, member Rosen.
Yes.
Okay.
And if we can put this like in a special envelope so the city council doesn't beat it up any further, because I don't want to see it again.
Oh, don't worry.
We'll just put it in one says sign here.
Don't worry.
Yeah, right.
Hey, just quickly,
Go ahead.
did Jane say 5.11.3 and 5.11.4?
Oh, I did not.
Sorry.
You're good catch. Do you want me to make the motion again? Or are
You
we
just
good?
vote on 5.11.4. Add it in there or modify. the
Well,
motion.
talked about, well,
What do you want me to do, Greg?
We can just call it the amendments to 511
correct.
as
Okay,
provided
perfect.
in the draft dated July 21st.
Thanks
Thank you,
for
Sean.
that catch, Sean.
Time to move on.
Okay.
So, get a continued pre-application for our OSRD project. We do have a Mr. McKenna in the audience.
And let me pull them in.
Yeah. I don't know what else is on his team, but
Yep, I can see. I'll pull them in.
Okay, so Tony dropped his hand. And an agenda would be helpful, Greg.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. So next on the agenda is continued pre-application submitted by James McKenna Esquire, representing Cole Avenue LLC for an open space residential development OSRD subdivision at 19 Cole Ave, Assessors Map 213, Lot 20. We got the engineer here, and I have you permission, Mr. McKenna, as well.
I thought I did. Let me try again.
He's still in the participants. There he is. Good evening, gentlemen.
Yes, good evening.
Jim.
Thanks for having on us this evening. We've taken a bit of time. I think we all might recall that we had a good time observing the conditions, the site conditions and the issues with respect to the Cole Ave and the concerns that some raised with respect to a few items. And the first time any of you there, it was good to see those who came. Over the course of a few weeks, we learned a few things and took some input in from the board, which was very, very helpful. And so as a consequence of that, we then amended the plan. And we've submitted that tonight through Greg to you to consider. We have eliminated the sort of drive around through what was Esperanto Ave on paper. We agreed with, I think, input from the board and from others that if we can create a roadway that complies with the fire department's conditions and requirements, that we'd be better off for a number of reasons, namely not to have to disturb and leave that area of Esperanto alone and not have to do that cut and fill and all of that would be required, and shorten up and abbreviate the road and still come out with our unit count that we're looking for, and position it such that we could, be able to have compliance with the fire department requirements with respect to the ending of the road and the SWIFT study report that we will be doing that will assure access for the fire department. Then that would be a better way to go. That was a recommendation from the board, and we agree that was a good recommendation. So what we have done is submitted a plan that takes those thoughts into account and puts a sort of a extension off the area there where you can see the plan. I'll have Tony, our engineer, discuss it in more detail, but it creates a hammerhead that we did meet with the fire chief. He looked at that, thought that was going to be fine, given some requirements for limitations of use and also making sure that we notice it properly and make it exclusive use for fire purposes, and that we retain a 2 foot exclusion right around the entirety of the road, including that hammerhead, and no build along with that around it, such that they can be assured that the trucks would be able to access that without any inhibition whatsoever, and we can certainly do that. So we will be forwarding on, a more specific swept path analysis through and working with the engineering department to do that analysis, and and comply with what the fire chief has asked for. And so we've reorganized ourselves, if you will, and created, kept the density as it is, but I think softened a lot of the area and minimized the amount of impact to the entirety of the project. But I would ask for Tony, if he could, if he's on, I think he is, to go through, more specifically the issues with respect to the redesign.
Thank you. For the record, Tony Capichetti, engineer with Hayes Engineering, 603 Salem Street, Wakefield, Massachusetts. I want to thank you all for taking the time to come out and visit the site. Based off of that site visit, we did modify the plan to eliminate the loop that went through to Esperanto, as well as move lot 1 from what used to be into the hillside into where the roadway used to loop through, allowing us to minimize some of the disturbance of that hill. We're providing a compliant hammerhead turnaround. It is 30 feet wide by 75 feet long. It does allow the largest Gloucester apparatus to make a 3-point turn and exit back out of the OSRD driveway. We went out and we located the major walking paths through the area. We've kind of aligned the hammerhead to tie into one of those paths. We've also are still committed to improving the Cole Ave extension right away from the intersection with Esperanto down, widening that out to 22 feet with curbing, providing some drainage improvements, taking some of the curse off the road. Having talked to Greg, he asked about the grades. Maximum grade is on the approach of 7%. Then we level out to a 2. This is kind of the large boulder hump as you enter into the Cole Ave extension. We're taking about 3 feet off the top of that hill and then coming down at a 6.5%. This is right in this area here is where we take about 3 feet off the top of the hill. And then our subdivision roadway, a 1.5% leveling area at the intersection, typical of most subdivisions. That is a little bit of fill, but what we take down off the top will be used to fill this area. And then we drop to a 5.5%, which is a moderate slope coming back down to the end of the hammerhead. One thing we're committed to as well is we kind of took these units just as an example unit. If we're allowed to move on to a full definitive OSRD plan, we would look to work with the architecture a bit more, see if we can tighten them up on the lots and look for some more opportunities to limit the amount of slope disturbance in this area. We do everything we can to keep the entirety of the work outside the 100-foot buffer zone to Wallace Pond. And we're 50.1% open space that meets the definition. However, we're providing almost another acre on top of that, almost 36,000 square feet of additional space. That is the remainder of the 20-foot, 2/3 of the 20-foot buffer around the site doesn't count. It also includes a portion of the buffer zones that is not allowed to be counted, and the steep slope in this area that's not allowed to be counted. And we'd be open to discussions with any town entity that would want to hold the restriction on that land. Where it is on the reservoir, our recommendation would be to deal with the water department to hold that restriction. But again, whether it's Conservation Commission, Water Department, whoever, it is a valuable piece of land that we preserve in perpetuity around Wallace.
Terrific. Thank you, Tony.
Thank
you. Greg?
Yeah, I just wanted to note there, so these plans were uploaded on Monday. We also did receive some public comment today. That's also in the folder. But just from the perspective of the plan itself, again, I think, the areas, the two areas that we are fairly focused on the site visit were the units to the south, their proximity, and how they kind of fit with the existing terrain. And then also, as we looked at that potential connection, which on paper looks like it makes a lot of sense, until we went out into the field. There is a resource area to the north as well. Then Tony, I'm not sure has that not been delineated or?
It's been delineated. It is isolated wetland. And it's
Okay, so you've
property.
not shown a buffer. Okay. So again, I think a lot of the initial concerns from the conservation perspective were obviously the proximity and potential activity on the south and west side of the roadway proximate to Wallace Pond, as well as a concern from engineering DPW in terms of management of the water supply. And then also, the potential concerns around the initial proposal, which really kind of utilized most of the area to the northwest as well, would probably have involved a lot of blasting, a lot of clearing, and trying to kind of buffer that as well. So in terms of the features from the open space perspective, that knoll and keeping that intact to the extent that it can, as well as looking to protect the water resource to the south and southwest.
Terrific. Any other questions, applicant or the engineer?
No, it's just, I think this has been a good result from a lot of input from folks, from the planning board, as well as, common sense, determining what we should do here. I appreciate everything that the board has done to give their input here, and the abutters as well. We'll continue to listen to what their concerns are and do whatever we need to do to accommodate them. But I think what we're finding is a better result at the end of the day. And so I know the applicant appreciates everyone's input.
So we are in a pre-application stage of this open space residential development. It's not customary to take any public comment, but if anybody would like to be recognized, I'd ask you to raise your hand electronically or press star 9 on your phone, and limit your comments to 3 minutes if that's possible, at the discretion of the chair. Seeing none.
Oh, there is one raised.
At the buzzer. Just unmute yourself, so star 9.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi. So my name is Kim Ladoff. I live at 15 Clearview Ave, which is adjacent to Cole Ave. And my main concern with this is the increase in traffic. Cole Ave is obviously a small street. And right now we can't even fit 2 cars going up and down the road. One always has to pull over to the side to let someone else go, or you have to pull into someone's driveway. So my concern with this is it's such a small neighborhood, and now we're going to add all these extra houses. And this is obviously the only way that the vehicles can come in and out. And if we're talking 12 units, then we're probably, let's safely assume, at least 24 cars that will now be entering and exiting this neighborhood on top of what we already have. And it's also a private road, so it's not maintained at all. There's potholes. It's a mess. So my concern is the extra traffic in just such a small neighborhood. And I just want to know if there's anything, if there's any plans, or what the plans are to, I don't know, are we extending the road, or I don't know what the plan is.
we have, through you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
uh,
sir.
We have committed to, as soon as my screen catches up, basically reconstruct close to 500 feet of the road to widen it to 20 feet in width with curbs and, let's see if I can go to this one here. Can you see the one that just popped up?
Well, she's
Or
on.
like-
Well, so
Oh, sorry. So the,
So
from
you're going to be
the-
cutting into but you're going to be cutting into everyone's property that's on Cole Ave, obviously, then to make that extra room.
We've made accommodations to stay out of the developed property, but yes, some lawns that are going up to the edge of the road currently, but they're within the right of way would go away. But we did locate some of the fences and did topography up the roadway, and the goal is to stay away from any improvements anyone has made, but to maintain a 20-foot wide width with curbing and
Okay.
repave and resurface a portion of the road. Like, we don't get as far down as Clearview, but that is the intent, is to.
But so you're only bringing it up to where Cole and Clearview meet? It's not going all the way up?
There's a Paper Street Esperanza that we're
Yeah.
improving.
Yeah.
So it would be the last 1, 2, 3 homes. That area would be. improved.
Okay, which is basically all of them except for one. So my main concern is because of all the children in this neighborhood and it's just so small, I'm just worried about the extra traffic. It's a lot of extra traffic to be going through such a small neighborhood on a private road.
We're looking at 12 additional homes. I can provide some additional information as to the number of trip generation if my computer would cooperate. I was trying to.
Well,
pull up the IT.
I mean, I understand that, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's 12 homes, you're probably talking 24 vehicles at least. If there's teenagers in the home, now we're talking more vehicles. That's just for one small street that only has 6 houses on it. It's a lot of extra traffic. I mean, I know you can't answer or solve these problems right now, but I just want to make it known that we've had almost every single neighbor in this neighborhood, with the exception of 3, are opposed to this, just because of the extra traffic that it's gonna put on this road.
It's something I can talk to the applicant about, maybe looking to see, possibly if we're allowed to go on to the final design. And again, this is not an approval process through the planning board. This is just that we can move to the next step. I can
Right,
talk
I
to them
understand
about
that.
we could possibly look at what improvements we could make going further down the road. Maybe we trade off some of the curbing that were proposed on Esperanto to add some additional paving heading out, so we can make it a net positive for the neighborhood.
Okay, I would appreciate that. And what I would also appreciate is if we could look at possibly putting in like a stop sign where Clearview and Cole Ave is, because like I said, there's a lot of kids, there's a lot of pets. It's always been a private, small area back here, and that's my main concern. If we had a stop sign, maybe it would help alleviate some of it. I just don't want Cole Ave to all of a sudden turn into like a racetrack where cars are going up and down it all day long. Speed bumps, something to slow down the traffic. If this gets approved and goes ahead, I would just like to see something to slow it down.
So the planning board nor the applicant can authorize a stop sign. That would be a city council action. Having said that, what we can do is the manual and uniform traffic control devices, the MUTCD, lists 7 warrants that make a stop sign required. We can go through that as part of our application process, and if one of those warrants is triggered, we'd be more than happy to prepare the application for the city council and hope for the neighborhood support to get stop signs at that intersection.
that would be very much appreciated.
And keep in mind, this is a pre-application discussion. This is not the definitive submission plan where these issues would be put in concrete. I mean, in writing, I should say, not concrete.
Okay.
And there's going to be plenty of discussion moving forward.
Okay. Okay. That's great.
And not speaking for the applicant, but obviously private roads are private roads and they're everywhere. It may be a terrific opportunity for the neighbors to get together and to address the pothole issues. And in a homeowner association sort of format. And then when equipment and things like that are on site during construction, you may be able to take advantage of the economies of scale to address some of the issues that haven't been addressed by homeowners on the private road.
Oh, I've already thought of that.
You have. So we'll be talking for a while.
Okay,
One
great.
other thing, Mr. Chair, I'm
Yes.
sure Jim McKenna and myself, if Mr. Ladoff,
Ladoff.
contacts Greg, I'm more than happy to have her have him share my email address. She wants to provide any other thoughts or concerns if we're allowed to go into design, that we could
Okay, great.
evaluate.
Thank you. I appreciate
All
that.
right, thank you. Any other comments from attendees before we get into minutes? So great, do we need to take an action or simply?
No, I think you've provided the feedback. I think they're looking, for some, kind of general consensus that this is the direction to move in versus a conventional design. They've initially came in with that as part of their pre-application to show you what they had initially thought in terms of a pre-application. I think there's clearly, resources here that are worthy of preservation, as the ordinance ultimately is looking for the end game of combining both housing and preservation in the same application. And that, that they should move to the next stage of making a more formal submittal.
I would concur.
Can I just ask one question, Rick, before we go on?
Sure.
Can you just, or Tony, can you remind me on each of these lots, there's a 2-family dwelling, about how many bedrooms they are?
So the plan we show here has 3 bedrooms per dwelling. And this is just an architectural plan from a similar type project that we grabbed just to have something to fit. As I said, we'll come up with a kind of a spec unit to present to the board when we make our final application, and look at some options that may work with the topography a little bit better. This area down here, we're looking at, garage under, to try and work with the grade a little bit more. So we know we have to spec these out, but 3 bedrooms is what we're intending as a maximum for these units.
And so 6 per lot.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That was it.
David?
Thank you.
And just remind me, with 12 units here, how many of these units would be subject to the inclusionary housing?
I believe it would be
It would be 2.
2 units.
From what I understand, yes.
Okay.
And
is
we
the-
didn't seek any bonuses or anything in our application.
And would you assume that those 2 units would be on the same lot or not, on different lots?
I don't think we've determined that at this point, Mr. Rosen, but we'd certainly look for input. I think what we probably would be more inclined to do is to keep them separated, and sort of, we're looking for a holistic approach to this design. So we don't want to put units, concentrated on one lot. I think what we want to do is make this a very family-friendly and intimate design that's respectful of the income issues, and make it unrecognizable, if you will, the affordable relative to the market rate.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? So I think you guys have got your marching orders. Appreciate the time and effort to make a better project. And Jim, I cleared the first OSRD hurdle in my tenure at the planning board. So
I thank you to the planning board. This is a first. As I said in the opening remarks of this process, I never like to be first in anything. Since we have been, I hope we can see this through and all take pride in something that will be respectful of what the intent of the OSRD attempts to do here. So I thank everyone for your input, your effort, and the neighborhood as well. And we will continue on with looking for input and advice as we go forward and submit a final definitive plan. So thank you all for your time, and the staff has been terrific, by the way. I really appreciate the time and effort they put into this.
just remember, Jim, planning board is the kinder, gentler board.
So noted. Thank you.
All righty. Good luck.
Thank you again for all you've done.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Tony. Terrific. All right. Want to talk about some minutes?
Love doing the minutes at the end.
Yeah.
I reviewed all of them. And so Catherine, my little comments, is that working for you? Is that a good process?
Yes, thank you.
And do I need to email you when I've made changes, or you'll just see that I have?
Yeah, I'm notified when you've made
Okay.
an activity in the document. So that's
Okay.
It's good.
Great. All right. Well, I've reviewed them all and made little changes, and I'm happy with them.
So do we want to start with December 2nd?
Painful. December 2nd.
One note, I don't think, Jane, that I saw Catherine's updates with your changes. So I think these are the minutes that don't have your changes incorporated.
Oh, well, then you should probably pull up the, oh, wait, Catherine's giving you the thumbs up.
Oh, they are incorporated.
No.
They're not.
No, so I have not, I submit them to Gemma and Jane at the same time. So if you approve them, I will then send the amended minutes back to you.
But I don't remember the changes that I made. Is it possible to pull up for Catherine to share her screen and pull up the ones with the?
Yeah, she should be able to do that as well.
Catherine,
Sorry, guys,
do you
it's just
have,
more efficient than me trying to read through the whole thing.
yes, I think you already have permission to share, Catherine.
I have so many windows. First one.
Feel your pain.
All right. This. We're trying to do December 2nd. Okay, can you see that?
Not
No.
yet.
One. Oh, here, how about that?
Nope.
I love the, oh, there
Oh,
we go.
yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the comments have not yet been incorporated, but you should be able to see them. So start top. Tell me what you'd like me to do.
So why don't we just scroll down to the first correction?
Oh, yeah. So this is my thing. I'm always thinking about who's reading the minutes. And so I guess I was saying here, did we even, what is this topic here that Oh, yeah, this is when we discussed the various zoning amendments. So I just wanted, it's a message back to Catherine really to say, did we say anything smart that was worthy of writing down? So I just don't want anyone to think that we weren't listening or processing. But that's hard to answer right in this format, so
Yes.
we can pass on that. So I did just say, right, so in this part, remember Rosen makes a motion to amend the prior motion to vote on the special permit, and it doesn't describe what the amendment was, and I don't remember what the amendment was, but I just don't know if we need to.
And nor do I.
I think I do.
Well,
It was to separate out the special permit portion so that basically the first section of that would go through, right? The new one, new 2 families by right, R40, 30, blah, blah, blah. And then by special permit of the ZBA in RC 40. So it was, I believe it was to separate that portion out. So we're voting on
Right.
by right use separate from the special permit vote.
okay, so if you can just put Z between on and special. Or
Added separately.
yeah, vote on the special permit portion of the amendment, I guess.
Mhm.
Perfect, that's great. And then above this, I just added, Rick closed the public comment period, and I just wanted it to be clear that there was no further public comment.
Thank you.
A little sensitive to that too. So I guess forget about my comment about did we say anything smart, but just to be sensitive about it in the future. If we do say something smart, make sure you record it.
Got it.
So this was a really hard one to write, Catherine. I really appreciate how well you did. That was crazy.
I have to say, it took a very long time.
I'm sure it did. I hope you charged appropriately for your time.
It's okay. One thing I'm encountering is Zoom recording when you rewind, which I had to do many times because it's very special language. I have to start at the beginning because it encounters problems. Yeah.
And I particularly appreciated the fact that you had to say, member Remsen read the motion because I didn't vote for it. So you had to go back and forth. It was really good. Anyway, I can make a motion to approve this unless anyone else has any other comments.
That would be great.
I move that we approve the minutes of December 2nd, 2021.
Second,
Have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Member Noonan,
Yes.
member McCarl,
yes.
member Henry,
Yes.
member Remsen,
Yes.
member Rosen.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, ladies. So December 16th.
Yeah, this is my same comment. Did we say anything about, I mean, again, you can't, unless you, without going back to the tape, you can't answer that question, but just if we say something, you can add it.
Any other comments, additions, modifications, amplifications? Seeing none. Jane,
Okay, I make a motion to approve the December 16th, 2021 minutes.
Second,
have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Member Noonan,
Yes.
member McCarl,
yes,
member Henry,
Yes.
member Remsen,
Yes.
and member Rosen.
Yes.
Okay, right into 2022.
One comment I just threw in the absence of a full board.
Seems better.
Oh, and then just Chair Noonan sees 2 decision pathways and you said 1 and then 2, so just clarifying.
Yeah.
I think I spelled permanently wrong.
Mhm.
Yeah, so just clarifying that. And then just adding a paragraph separation for readability. Clarifying restaurant owners. Oh, yeah, so did we send a recommendation to the zoning board? I thought it was just the city council. Greg,
City council only.
So
Yeah.
I actually wasn't at this meeting, but it was the city council only.
yeah. So you have to cross that out. Yeah, thanks, Catherine.
It should have been just to the zoning board, but I don't want
What?
no, just.
to. Really an amendment of an existing thing, so it should have not have ever even come to us.
Oh, right, yes, okay. But the minutes are okay, okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, and so I changed the motion language, if you guys think that's correct. To recommend the zoning amendment to the city council with the following added conditions, right? Isn't that what we did? We didn't really vote to change it. We voted to recommend it to the city council, right?
Correct.
Yes.
And then they took them out anyways.
I know. Okay,
All right.
any other comments?
No comments for me.
Okay, I move that we accept the minutes of June 2nd, 2022.
Second.
I meant to say June 2nd instead of Jan 2nd.
Well,
June, sorry.
June. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Member Noonan,
Yes.
member McCarl,
yes,
member Henry,
Yes.
member Remsen,
Yes.
and member Rosen.
Yes.
Okay, June 16th. Shazam.
Yeah, just a picky point. That's it.
Amazing. Any other comments? Hearing none.
Okay, I move that we accept the minutes of June 16, 2022.
Motion.
Second.
Thank you, Hank. Roll call vote, please.
Member Noonan,
Yes.
member McCarl,
yes,
member Henry,
Yes.
member Remsen,
Yes.
and member Rosen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for all that effort. Thank you, Catherine, for sticking to it. Other business or member topics?
So I'll just update just that the subcommittee did meet last week on the floodplain zoning and regulation proposals that were presented at the meeting on the 16th. And we are going to meet again next Tuesday at 4 p.m. To continue that discussion. And I really apologize. We thought that we had added that information or had circulated that information with the board, and we had not yet. So Jane just kept saying, I just need to see the text. And I'm like, what? So, so hopefully that helps by actually having the text.
Does.
So we'll meet again, and then probably put that on the agenda for further discussion if the subcommittee is prepared to, if they have any proposed changes to that, for discussion on the August 4th meeting. And I guess maybe we should just double check on folks' attendance on the 4th. Does that still work for everybody that's on? I think Beverly is back then. I can't remember. She's.
I'm out.
You're
I'm
out, Hank. Okay.
I'll be leaving on the 2nd. Won't be
Okay.
back.
And I'm traveling on the 4th. I just
Uh-oh.
need to check my schedule that afternoon of the 4th.
I'll be traveling on the West Coast on the 4th as well.
Doesn't look like a quorum to me.
Okay. So did anybody have to check their schedules? But so far it looks like Rick, Hank, and Sean are out. Correct?
Yeah.
I'm here, I'm there.
You're here.
By
David's here,
myself,
and
maybe.
we don't know about Doug and Beverly. So we would potentially have a quorum, but it may make sense for certain, just to manage the agenda. So if we have A&R applications, that type of thing, we'll proceed. But if it's some of these larger things, maybe we can just continue them to the meeting of August 18th. Unless anybody has travel plans then.
I'm back.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll circle back in a week in advance to make sure that we have at least 4. And if not, then we'll have to cancel that meeting. But otherwise, we'll see the subcommittee on next Tuesday.
All right.
Move for
Motion to
adjournment,
adjourn.
Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second, please, Jane.
Second?
Roll call vote.
Okay. Member Noonan,
Yes.
Member McCarl,
Yes.
Member Henry,
Yes.
Member Remsen,
Yes.
and Member Rosen.
Yes.
Have a lovely weekend and stay cool.
Bye.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Night,
Meet
folks.
after next.
David, do you
Thank
want to stay on for a second and Greg and I can take care of a little business?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you, folks.
So I don't know that I have the ability to stop the recording.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I don't think I actually can. So the only thing I could do is we could do a quick, like a Google Meet that I can send out shortly.
Okay.
I'll do that right now.
Okay. See you in a minute.
So
David.
you'll see an email in a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So we